Creating a pivot table for the Sociology Division book sales has been helpful to analyze the data from different perspectives. You continue your analysis by setting filters and performing other calculations within the pivot table. You want to focus on first and second edition books that have a 2016 or 2017 copyright. You will filter out the other editions and other copyright years. When you drag the edition field to the filters area, the field name displays in cell A1 with the filter arrow in cell B1. Cell B1 displays all and the filter arrow. The list displays a checkbox for each item. Deselect all checkboxes before selecting the checkboxes to display only the first and second editions. The summary statistics reflect sales data for only first and second edition publications. The filter arrow changes to a funnel icon in cell B1, and all changes to multiple items, indicating multiple items are included in the filter. Finally, deselect all of the copyright years, and then select only 2016 and 2017. Excel filters out data that does not meet the copyright filters you engaged. You plan to distribute the workbook to other managers and sales representatives in the publishing company. However, other people may not be as familiar with Excel as you are. Therefore, you insert slicers to help them apply filters to the pivot table. The Insert Slicers dialog box opens, listing each field name. The Discipline slicer is inserted in the worksheet. The dark blue slicer buttons indicate the selected disciplines. Light blue slicer buttons indicate those disciplines are not applicable based on the filter you set for the copyright year. Because all of the applicable buttons are selected, and because you want to keep those buttons selected except aging and death, you must hold down the Control key as you click the aging/death slicer button to deselect it. The slicer window displays the buttons into two columns, and the width of each button is 1.5 inches to display the full discipline names within the buttons. The slicer is 2 inches tall to display all the buttons without having to scroll within the slicer. Finally, you applied a different style to the slicer to format it. You want to calculate the amount of sales returned to the authors as royalties. You will create a calculated field within the pivot table. The Insert Calculated Field dialog box opens. The calculated field name must be unique. Excel builds the formula as you insert fields. Type the arithmetic formula. In this case, you multiply the total book sales by 10%. Move the slicer below the pivot table. Format the labels in the pivot table by wrapping and centering the field names. You adjusted the row height to display the labels better on row 5. You adjusted the widths of columns C and E so the data fits better within the columns. You want to see which copyright year generated the largest sales for each discipline, which discipline contributes the largest percentage of the total sociology sales, and which introductory book has the largest sales contribution within that discipline. You want to preserve the pivot table you created, but create a duplicate that you can further manipulate for the sociology book sales. In the duplicate pivot table, you remove the edition, discipline, and copyright filters. And then you delete the slicer since you don't need it for this pivot table. You open the Value Field Settings dialog box to specify how you want values to be calculated. Excel displays each copyright year as percentages for that discipline. All disciplines except introductory and research stats had the highest percentage of sales for books with a 2017 copyright. The two disciplines had their highest percentage of sales for books with a 2016 copyright. Each discipline's yearly value displays as a percentage of the total sales. The 2017 Race, Class, Gender discipline has produced the highest percentage of total sales. To enhance the readability of the Sociology Division textbook pivot table, you apply a style to it. The Pivot Table Styles Gallery displays styles that you can apply. The Pivot Style Medium 3 style applies a dark red fill color with white font text color to the column labels. Clicking the Banded Columns checkbox applies a banding to the pivot table. In this case, it applies dark red vertical lines between columns. As you analyze pivot table data, you can set filters and insert slicers to filter the data to display aggregates for particular fields. You can even create a calculated field in a pivot table to calculate additional aggregates or show values as specific calculations of a total or column.